want to make sure you can see the screen. Give me a quick thumbs up if you can see chapter 2. Thank you so much, Darren. Very good, very good. Thanks, guys. All right, so we are in chapter 2. Remember that we started chapter 1 yesterday. We're going to do chapter 2 today, and then we'll do chapter 7 on tomorrow. So make sure you're reading chapters 1, 2, and 7. They're not large chapters, so you don't have to worry too much about that. All right. So in chapter 2, we're going to kind of pick up from where we left off with chapter 1, talking about these skill sets. And we know we need technical skills, right? We all know that. That's why we're in school. But the job and careers also require other skills, basic skills, soft skills, the ability to follow workplace ethics and whatever outline that they may have for you in terms of safety or whatever that is, right? So let's talk a little bit about what that looks like, and then we'll round out the conversation with talking about your responsibility with digital citizenship and what that looks like in today's technological world. Just a quick recap. I forgot that slides 4.8. You can forget that. I should have deleted that. That's not for you. But please remember with participation grades, guys, participation, in addition to you coming to here or coming to the live session or listening to it, you must post by 10 p.m. in order to get participation and attendance. Now, even though attendance doesn't account against your grade, it does account against you being enrolled, but the participation question does count against your grade. So it's going to be very, very important that you get that done by 10 p.m. I just wanted to reiterate that. Also, when you are doing your discussion posts, just again, please make sure that you are adhering to the word count on that and that you are responding to at least one person for full credit. So let's get into basic skills. Most of us know, and if you don't know, you went through high school, that basic skills are a requirement. Everybody expects you to know how to read, to write, to speak, to do basic math, and nowadays to have technology skills. Like, I don't think there's any company that don't expect you to know how to send an email, to know how to go onto a website, to know how to write a basic letter. Those are basic expectations, right? That people expect you to know how to do. They expect you to know how to do basic software, get onto Teams, for example. A lot of companies are spread out. They may have different divisions across Florida, and you may have to do a Teams meeting over a project that you guys are going to start. Those are just basic technological skills they're going to expect you to have, in addition to the hard skills that you are currently learning. So no job is straight welding, electrical, HVAC, VA all day. You will be required to do some form of administration, and those skills are expected of you. What is also expected of you are some other, what we call employability skills. And this includes workplace skills, transferable skills. We kind of talked about those soft skills. For example, your ability to communicate, right? Your ability to work well in a team. But they also expect you to have, in chapter 2, they'll drill down on this, thinking skills, your ability to think critically, people skills, and your own personal qualities, that do differentiate you from the next person. I mean, a lot of times that's what makes you get the job over somebody else, right? We all know of instances where you just say, oh, I just work better with Tim, or I work better with Sarah, because maybe they just have a better temperament. Maybe they have a better attitude towards the teamwork, right? And maybe they could be equal in knowledge and equal in, their abilities with the next person. But at the end of the day, Who wants to work with somebody that is not agreeable? Like, we all know somebody like that, right? We don't have to call them out, right? Nobody wants to work with y'all can finish that sentence. Everyone wants to work with someone that is a team player. You just leave it at that. In addition to you being able to have this skill set, each of your respective industries are going to have their own set of ethics. Ethics has to do with not just your personal moral beliefs, but when it comes to workplace ethics, it is what's expected of you on the job. That includes your code of conduct and your code of ethics. As a veteran in the military, in the Army, we used to carry around a code of conduct card in our upper left-hand pocket because they wanted us to be mindful at all times. Any veterans in the house? At all times, how you were expected to behave, perform, you know, and they instilled that in you. That's why it's no secret. If you meet most veterans, not all, but most veterans, especially Marines and Army, I'm going to say that for sure, because those are your ground troops, they all have the same temperament, being on time, doing what you're supposed to do, following orders. You see that same temperament because they ingrain it in you. Obviously, it's critical. You can't be on a battlefield and your boss is telling you to go left and you want to go right. Like, you can get somebody killed, right? So you got to be able to follow orders, and you can't be, argumentative, because people don't have the time to tell you why you going right, right? There could be a bomb over there. So you need to follow orders, to keep yourself safe and others. So they're going to instill that in you in the military. And most military people carry that with them. They're just all about, myself included, I'm all about, tell me where I got to be, what time I got to be there. Let me get the job done and let me go on about my business. That is a very militant mindset. But when you, in your respective industries, that's just how it is in the military. But in your respective industries, you're going to have similar workplace ethics, especially for you guys that are dealing with safety. So I'm sure the HVAC people, well, probably the welding and the electrical, even more so than the HVAC, can attest to that. Any electrical and welding people, give me a thumbs up. Safety is important. Like, you can get somebody hurt, you can get hurt. That's not a job you can just be like, oh, let me take this call while I'm doing this work, right? You need to concentrate. I need you to pay attention to what you're doing. So they're going to have a lot of ethics. Conversely, people in the VA field, they're dealing with medicine, they're dealing with a life, it's a pet life, but they're still dealing with a life. So they're going to have a lot of ethical concerns when it comes to them, and a lot of workplace ethics that are going to be critically important. So, like I said, every industry is going to have their own. Now, there are certain things, let me tell you right now, that are not just unethical, they are illegal. Why am I saying that? Because you do not want to go to jail on behalf of your company. You understand? Like, you don't want that drama. So it is important for you to know, as you get into your industry, what is also considered illegal. Like, if you over prescribe or over inject a pet with medicine, a girlfriend, boyfriend, let me tell you, you could be in trouble, right? You cannot just lose your job. You can end up in court. The same way. That's why you have certifications, which I hate to be a Debbie Downer, but most of the reasons why you have licenses in certain fields is because you are taking an oath that you know what you're doing, and what you're doing you're going to do ethically, because if not, you will be in somebody's courtroom. So it's not just a matter of ethics, it's also a matter of legality, right? And we all know that those two things are not tangential, which means they're not, everything that's ethical is not illegal. Some things are unethical, but it's legal. I think we see that in the politics right now, right? A lot of people say, oh my God, it's so unethical. And they're like, but it's not illegal, so we're doing it. right? And even though we would like for those things to be in tandem, they're not. So, it is going to be very, very important for you to know both in your industry. Don't rely on a company to tell you what's illegal. Now, what's ethical, is that their company? If their company does things a certain way, you have to decide, if that's how you want to live your life, and whether you want to follow those rules. But if it's illegal, then you definitely need to be taking ownership for that. I'll leave it at that. Companies do things that they're not supposed to do. We know how that goes. But now I also want to circle back and talk about, we talked about being online, and I already expressed to you guys the importance of you really paying attention to how you are using the internet. We definitely want you to use it because, you want to promote yourself for sure, but also, you want to have good citizenship. And what do we mean by that? That means that you want to be able to protect your information, your company's information. Your company is also promoting themselves. A lot of them will look to you to represent the institution. Like I said before, how would you feel if your pastor had an OnlyFans page or some weird stuff like that? Like, I don't know. You tell me. Would you have a problem? Thumbs up if you would have a problem with your pastor having an OnlyFans page. We don't know what he's putting over there. He could just be reading. He could just be reading the Bible. I don't know. But I'm saying you probably have an issue with something like that. Most people would, right? So you just got to be careful with what you're putting out there. I'm telling you, right? You'd be surprised what people do, though. It's sad. But, we call it a digital footprint. Like everything you do, somebody can find. So you got to be careful, 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 careful. That's all we're going to say on that. Start putting some positive stuff out there. You don't need anybody in your business. Your personal business is your own. Your personal views are your own. Everybody is entitled to have a view. I don't ever discount a person's viewpoint, positive or negative. You don't know that person's life. You don't know why they arrived at the thoughts that they arrived at. So I don't judge, but I'm just saying to you, companies might, and it's not because you don't take it personal. They're thinking about their money. You got to put yourself in their shoes. So just be mindful of that. All right. Now, companies will also want you to have some basic technology skills like we've included, we indicated at the top of the hour. Number one, most companies are going to work on the cloud. We're on the cloud now, right? Teams is run off of a cloud, right? Microsoft runs a server, a major server, that hosts this application called Teams, and millions of people use it. That's why sometimes it glitches. So your company probably is going to have some either Google or some other type of paid server. You can do private servers, on the cloud, and they're going to expect you to know how to log in. Like I said, do Teams or access your email. There's really basic stuff. I'm saying basic because it's basic now, and they expect you to do that. Even coming to school, who's taking an online course for the first time? Give me a thumbs up if you're taking an online course for the first time. And they may not have even told you were going to have to take this course because, oh, very good. I'm glad it's okay. People just assume that you know how to do it, right? People assume you know how to log in, you know how to access Teams, you know how to, use the OneDrive and things of that nature, even though you may be like, I ain't never used the OneDrive ever. Those will be expectations. So don't just think again that because you're in a technical field that you won't have to do these administrative things and they won't expect it of you. Now, software is going to be probably not as much of a big deal for you guys, but it could be. It just depends on the type of company that you work for. But when it comes to software, protecting people's, digital software, not digital software, protecting people's software, because it is digital, making sure that you are aware of what you're downloading, making, whether it's files or whatever else, is going to be important. So you may have access to a major contract, for example, that the company just secured, you get you and they tell you like don't put it on your personal computer. Make sure that you keep it on our drive because we have this firewall or we have this privacy. It's on the what we call a virtual private network or something like that, and they don't want you downloading it because they don't want people having access to it. Like, those are going to be things that people expect you to understand and to know how to do, right? So I'll get off my soapbox on that. Obviously, again, you probably won't have a lot to do with intellectual property, but you never know. It just depends on the type of institution that you work for. Let's talk a little bit more about netiquette because we kind of focused on this a little bit yesterday. And netiquette has everything to do with how you speak, on the computer, right? How you digitally, how you engage with others. The expectation, listen, if your boss is texting you, the emojis and the acronyms that some of y'all young folks use, I still need a dictionary. Like, I'm not going to tell you how long it took me to understand what TBH means. I don't even think I still know what it means. What does it mean? I still don't know what it means. Listen, so you see, I just tried to do an acronym. I still don't know what it means. I don't even know what that stuff means. Like,
To be honest.
To be honest, I was today years old when I found that out. Y'all see how it's never too late to learn? To be honest. Okay. That's embarrassing. I didn't know. Like, I don't know what that stuff means. You can't assume people know that little acronym type stuff. Listen, I'm old school. We use language. We didn't mind using language, but we didn't have to do a lot of texting. We had to do a lot of talking. So excuse us for that. But when you are engaging with your supervisor, coworkers, try to minimize that, guys. Don't assume everybody knows what you're talking about. And I'm be honest now, I'm not afraid to say I just turned 52 years of age. I'm proud of myself. Some older people take offense to it. I'm just going to tell you, some older people don't like that. They want you to use language because they don't know what that stuff is. So just use your discretion if you are engaging, because a lot of times if you guys are going to be, working off site and you may have to check in with your boss, all that emoji, acronym type stuff, like minimize that because you don't want people judging you thinking that you don't know how to speak properly, and people do judge. So I'm just going to put it on Front Street on that. Like, so be mindful of that. So just practicing good etiquette, we call it netiquette if you're going to be using any type of digital device. Same thing when you're sending emails, same thing if you're on any type of social media, because sometimes depends on what company that you work for, which I don't agree with this, but a lot of companies will be like, oh, add me to your LinkedIn and let's hook up. I don't like it because I don't want you monitoring my LinkedIn. I've never liked it because I feel like, maybe that's because I, am a consultant and an educator and a contractor. So, I don't need you all in my business snooping around all on my LinkedIn account. But companies will want you to promote them, so you may work for a company that says, oh, make sure you promote us on your LinkedIn and make sure you connect with me, and then, they're monitoring, not deliberately monitoring, but you never know. You always have that one sneaky coworker that's checking out everything that you're doing. A lot of people don't like to connect with their coworkers. Give me a thumbs up if you're not into connecting with your coworkers on social media. I completely understand it. Probably not your boss. Maybe you're like, okay, we're not there yet. Trust me, you will be. Once you start working for these companies, a lot of times they do want you to promote. Them, but just putting it out there. All right. Now, not going to jump into this, but there are core rules of netiquette. You can read about it in chapter 2 that, just talks about the things that you want to look out for. It's nothing that we haven't discussed both today and yesterday. Many of you also will have tons and tons of certifications, right? That not now, but like throughout your career, especially all of your industries have a lot of, certifications, the ability to get to that next level. You can, whether it's a master electrician, a journeyman, obviously with VA, you can go be a VT and work your way up to other, positions. So certification is going to be critically important. Some people look at that, you're promoting that on your LinkedIn account. People look to see, what type of certifications you have. Sometimes companies look to see, how well qualified you are. So you want to self-promote yourself, so those are good things to put on your social media accounts, any type of certifications that you have. And I wouldn't just, promote like the technical stuff. If you have some software application that you're using, I know welding uses some. And again, that's only because I was a program director over business and IT and welding at a previous company. So I just know a little bit more about welding. But you'll have other certifications that you can do, that may not be directly related, but it could be like maybe some technical, IT related or whatever else. Promote all that stuff because you never know who's looking, right? That's good. All right. So we ran through that really, really quickly. I kind of did it on purpose because your assignments are going to start to rev up, guys, and I don't want to waste your time. I want you to get in here, do your work. And if you're not asking questions, we're going to roll through this thing. You're not like big talkers. Most nighttime courses are typically never big talkers anyway. I definitely don't want you to not do your question, so I want you to get your points and start knocking out some of those assignments. So let me give you your participation question. Okay, yeah, and then I'm going to go over your assignments. All right, so here's your participation question for tonight. I want you to name one quality that sets you above the competition. One quality, hey, don't be shy. One quality that you feel about yourself that sets you above the competition, and one quality you think you can improve on. And improve on doesn't mean that you're bad at it. It just means that maybe you just don't have enough experience in. Maybe you want to gain some experience in it, right? So one quality that sets you above the competition and one quality maybe you like to acquire. One quality that sets you above the competition, one quality that you like to acquire. All right. Any questions on that? All right. For your assignment for tonight, and I forgot to do this yesterday. Normally I go over the assignments because I want to make sure everyone understands it. Part of your career planning, which we'll discuss tomorrow, will include you having to go out and talk to people. And I mentioned it I think I mentioned it on yesterday. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. Part of you planning your career is asking questions, right? You're going to ask a lot of questions. If this is your new career, I don't care if you had 20 years experience. I had over 15, 20 years experience in finance. Now I'm transitioning into law. I don't know law. I got to ask a lot of questions. I am a baby again when it comes to law. So there's nothing shy about having to ask a lot of questions. And we want you guys to get started doing just that. So in planning out your dream job, your career, we want you to start asking questions. So what we're going to ask you to do is to find a person between now and next Wednesday or Thursday to talk to that's in your industry about the field that you're going to go in. It could be an instructor, maybe it's your uncle, your dad, somebody's in the industry, maybe someone that inspired you to get into the industry. And tonight, I just want you to give me a name of somebody you think that you could talk to. You don't have to talk to them yet. Within a week, you need to talk to them. But tonight, I just want you to give me a name of someone you think that you could talk to. We call it picking their brain. I don't know if everybody ever heard of that terminology, but that informational interview that you'll be doing, it's just picking their brain about your career, letting them know what it is that you want to do, getting their thoughts, because this is going to help you set your long-term goals, which we're going to talk about tomorrow. Maybe you do want to be a master electrician and start your own business within 10 years. And you want to run that past them. Maybe it's an instructor you really like at your school and say, hey, Mr. T, I really want to be a master electrician and start my own business. Do you have any suggestions? Do you think 6 years is a good time to be a master electrician and then start my business within those next 2 years? Do you think I should wait it out? Like get their thoughts on it, get their feedback, because it's going to help you set the long-term goal. Maybe it'll help you adjust the time frame. Again, maybe you'll say, okay, I can get my degree, my master electrician in 6 years, but maybe I'll start my business by year 8, because he's like, yeah, don't wait too long on that. So whatever feedback they give you, it could be helpful in your setting your goals. So that's why we want you to talk to someone in your industry. But for tonight, you're just going to give us a name. If you don't have a name tonight, and maybe you have a name, but you can put it down. If it ends up being somebody else, it's not a big deal. So don't feel like you have to get a hard yes from them in order to just give us a name tonight. All right. You will be creating a resume next week. So this is your first, I guess, contact with career services officially. Some of you already know your career services people, some of you don't. But for those of you that don't, this will be your official contact with your career services. So in this assignment, you're going to be setting an appointment with your career services for them to review your resume. Don't freak out about it. If you don't have one, they'll help you write one. That's what they do. They're waiting for your phone call. Now, I'm going to say, hurry up and set these appointments. Some of them won't even have you come in. They'll just say, send me your resume digitally. But you want to go ahead and get on those books, because you need to turn in that appointment. You can just say, my appointment is Thursday at 12 or whatever it is to review my resume. Even officially, if it's y'all just going to talk over the phone, but give me that time and date. That is the assignment, is submitting the time and date that you will be speaking with career services. Next week, you're going to actually turn in the resume that they helped you, and they're going to sign off on it saying that they've seen it. Go ahead, Nate.
What if we already have went through that process and had the career source people already make us a resume already? Do we still
Good.
have
So what?
to?
Yeah, because what'll happen is, so because you're in an official career services class, they'll take that resume they did for you and they'll sign it, and then you'll turn it in to me through the assignment portal next week. So that means you don't have to waste time doing it, but they still need to sign it saying that they've seen it. It's really for them, because what happens is when you guys get ready to graduate, a lot of times they keep your resume on file, and if a job comes up that makes sense for you, they'll submit your resume on your behalf. But if they've never seen it, it becomes an issue, because then you turn in a resume, not you, because you've been through the process, but for people that have their own resume, then they try to give it to career services and they're like, what is this? Then they have to rush and try to fix it. So in this class, you turn in the signed copy saying that they've looked at it. So if they've already looked at yours, they're just going to sign off on it. Even if it's somebody else looked at it, but you just make an appointment and their colleague signs off on it. As long as somebody signs off on it that they think it's good to go, you'll turn it in next week.
Okay.
Yeah, so again, so your part will be easy. Still go ahead and make an appointment, but just call them up and tell them, say, I made an appointment for Tuesday at 4, and just call them and say, but you guys already looked at it. They probably just say, okay, what's your name or whatever. And then they'll just sign it. Some of them will send it directly to us, but I prefer they send it to you guys because you guys have to turn it in. And then they'll just send it to you via email, PDF, or whatever, and you turn it into the assignment portal. All right. All right, guys, if there's no other questions, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.